Hey everybody, Rob from Karma Comic Chameleon. Today we're looking at a couple of pro-revenge stories. First one, drive like a butthole, pay 400 euros. Let's jump right in. Hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. A bit of backstory. I'm a 28-year-old American guy who's been living in southwest Germany for a little over 2 years with my German wife. Though my German isn't the best yet, I know enough to get through daily life out here and understand just about everything when I'm paying enough attention. We live in an apartment with a small parking lot for guests, and each apartment has one garage big enough to fit one car in each. If a guest comes to visit, the size of the parking lot makes it very difficult or near impossible to get in and out of the garage. This is all important later. At the time, I was working at a small cafe about a 10-minute drive from our apartment. My job was extremely strict with working hours, so I was in at 7 a.m. and out the door and in my car at 4:30 p.m. Mondays through Fridays. After about 3 months of working there, I noticed every day on my drive home that the same blue car with a black stripe down the middle was either in front of me or behind me every day up until I parked at my apartment to where he would continue down the road. No biggie, I just assumed it was someone with the same type of work schedule that lived in the same small town as me. After a while, I noticed every time this guy was behind me, he would take any opportunity to overtake me, even though there were always about 20 to 30 cars directly in front of me going the same speed every day. It was a two-way road with one lane going each way all the way to where I lived. I thought nothing of it. I knew I was a slower driver since I didn't fully understand the German rules of the road yet and didn't want to take the chance of getting a ticket or worse. So I was used to people passing me even though I never went under the speed limit. Anyways, this went on for a while, with him still passing me almost every day, most of the time cutting me off, making me slam on the brakes. On one particular day, he was extremely impatient and aggressive, to where he tried to pass me in a one-lane roundabout to where he almost sideswiped my car. He ended up bailing from the attempt and fell back behind me. At this point, I'm pissed, but I hold back my anger and continue to drive normally. About 5 minutes later, I'm almost home driving up a pretty steep winding road with very tight turns. As I'm near the first bend, I see a man on a bicycle on my side of the road. So I veer to the middle of the road to give him some room while I pass, and I could see there was no oncoming traffic. At this exact moment, the asshole tries to pass me again, almost hitting me again. I couldn't move to my right or I would have hit the man on the bike. This asshole again bails from his obviously idiotic and dangerous attempt of passing me again and continues behind me. I finally got to my apartment, and when I park, for some reason I looked in my mirror, and who do I see parked behind me? You guessed it, the asshole. He looks pissed. I don't know what this guy plans on doing, and I have no intention of finding out, so I get out of my car and instantly got to the back of my car and grabbed the tire iron. But I keep it hidden so he doesn't see it or think I'm going to attack him. He gets out of his car to where I say to him in my broken German, "Can I help you?" He immediately scoffs and asks, "Where are you from, Scheiß Ausländer?" For those who don't know, Scheiß Ausländer is a very rude and disrespectful way of saying foreigner, something like f***ing foreigner. I ask him, "Does it matter where I'm from? I live here now." He scuffs again and started a whole speech about how people like you are the problem with this country and I shouldn't even be here, and how you should be thanking me since it's my tax money paying for you to be here. Side note, I came here legally, and between me and my wife's jobs, we live pretty comfortably with no government aid. I stop him in the middle of his rant and say, "You don't know anything about me, and what does any of this have to do with you driving like an asshole?" At this point, it looks like he's seeing red and continues to scream obscenities at me for about 30 seconds. He's suddenly interrupted by a loud "Hey!" where a man wearing a helmet runs right up to him and slams him against his car so hard it cracks his window with his back. I'm so confused for a bit while this man is pinning him to his car, absolutely enraged, screaming at this asshole, and then it clicked to me. This is the man on the bike. I didn't understand everything being said, but it was something along the lines of, "You almost killed me, WTF is your problem." The shouting went on for about 2 minutes until the man on the bike forced the asshole into his car and made him drive off. As much as I wished, this isn't the end of the story. About a month goes by, and on a Saturday, my wife and I come home from shopping. As we turn into our apartment parking, the only way into our garage is blocked by a car. The car. Blue with a black stripe. My wife notices that I'm more pissed than I should be about this because we had this situation before with other cars. Everyone that lives in this apartment is very nice, and we all have each other's phone numbers in case of an emergency or for this kind of situation. It's normal to receive a text from a neighbor at least once a week asking if we have a guest parked in the way. We don't really have friends in this area, so it was never our guest parking there. So my wife starts to send out a text asking for whoever has the guest if they could kindly move the car. While she's doing this, I'm calling the landlord, who has told us multiple times if someone blocks our way to the garage to call her so she can call a tow truck. Obviously, nobody in our building does this because it's usually not a big deal and a simple text could solve it. I tell her what's going on and give her the details of the car. I hear her let out a him again. Okay, I'll deal with it. And she hangs up. Apparently, this man has given another neighbor of ours problems before. I tell my wife not to send out the text and that we should go get a coffee instead. There's a cafe directly in front of our apartment building. My wife looks confused, but says okay. We're sitting in the outdoor part of the cafe with a clear view of the apartment parking while I explain to her the whole story of this guy and what he did last month because I never told her about it before. Eventually, I see a tow truck in the apartment parking and point it out to my wife, and she almost can't contain her laughter. I wasn't able to hear much, but eventually, the asshole noticed his car was being towed and ran outside his car, which was already on the truck. All I heard was a lot of screaming, but didn't understand anything. The truck driver eventually left with his car, and the asshole was just standing there. He looked across the street and noticed my wife and I watching the whole thing. I smiled and waved, took a sip of my coffee. He walked back inside with utter defeat. I later found out that the asshole is the father to one of the girls who lives in the same building as me. She knocked at my door the next day and asked about the situation, which I explained everything. Thankfully, she was very understanding and even apologized for her father's behavior. She also told me this isn't the first time her father's anger got him in trouble. My wife, being the nicest person in the world, made her cookies later that week to show no hard feelings towards her. She laughed, told us her dad had to pay 400 euros to get the car back. She was actually pretty happy her father got what was coming to him. After that, we actually became pretty good friends with her and her boyfriend. Now, every time the asshole comes to visit his daughter, he parks his car across the street and won't say a word to me. And as far as I know, he drives a different way to home from work. Doesn't it seem like everybody out on the road is always in such a hurry to get places? It's better to arrive late and arrive alive rather than put yourself and a whole bunch of other people in danger with your absolutely terrible driving. On to our second story. Landlord refuses to fix broken windows, costs him thousands of dollars and his job. Let's jump right in. My girlfriend and I moved into a house that had several broken and cracked windows held together with tape. The rest of the house was great and in perfect condition. The landlord promised to fix them ASAP. He kept promising to fix them month after month with no action being taken. After 6 months, I began recording his phone calls and had recorded him threatening to have us evicted if we got a lawyer, which is highly illegal in my state. Landlord cannot retaliate against a tenant for getting a lawyer. So we got a lawyer and we provided him with the recordings and pictures of the windows. We also contacted City Code Enforcement Department and reported some minor code violations that we noticed throughout the house. At this time, I worked for a medium-sized payroll and corporate compliance company who happened to do the payroll for the company that my landlord was the president of. Because of this, I could see exactly which laws he was breaking due to state and federal human resource and labor law regulations. For example, He did not have a company handbook, labor board posters displayed, and didn't have various federal compliance reporting measures in place. Being in the industry, I knew the minimum fines for the slew of violations his company had would be about $730,000 due to the length of time they had been operating without these requirements in place for his business. So I reported his company to the appropriate regulatory committees, knowing perfectly well that when hit the fan, they would look to him for answers. I didn't hear anything regarding his company violations for some time while the legal negotiations continued between my lawyer and his. In the meantime, the code department issued a $10,000 fine for the code violations, including the windows, and required him to fix the windows. Now, anyone who knows Windows knows you shouldn't replace one window at a time, especially when you have numerous bay windows in the house. This required him to replace windows in the entire house, which ended up costing $6,000 as there are a lot of windows in the house. The legal negotiations ended after the windows were replaced. In my state, due to a clause listed in the lease, I was able to bill the landlord for my legal fees to fight him on this issue. Add $5,000. We are now at $21,000 in costs incurred by the landlord for these windows. A couple months go by, and I notice he's no longer on the company payroll. Again, I worked for the company that did his payroll and compliance for his company. When I called his company to verify we shouldn't be paying him, I was informed there were organizational changes due to fines brought against the company for a number of violations. When all was said and done, the landlord paid $21,000 out of pocket directly for the windows, and it cost him his job and his company at least $730,000 in federal and state violations. It didn't cost me a dollar in the end. I couldn't have been happier with the outcome. I think this goes to show that if you're moving into a location and it has several broken or cracked windows, when you look at it in the first place, maybe that should be a huge red flag and you look for somewhere else. I want to thank both of the OPs for posting their stories to the ProRevenge subreddit. You can visit them both at the links in the description below. Please do that and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comment Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.